Well, chat. It is another lovely Tuesday, and I am joining you all. Let me fix my mic. And I am joining you all on this lovely watch day, Watch Club Tuesday. I first and foremost want to apologize for being late. I know we normally start at 3:30, but I just had a couple things have to take care of. It's just been overall chaos on my end, and I was just kind of towing the line of rescheduling entirely or just pushing back the time. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to push back, simply because I felt like I wasn't going to be in the right frame of mind. I wasn't going to have the amount of time I necessarily needed to get a clear and concise stream out for a watch club. I like to be dedicated to these things for you guys. I want to give a big shout out, speaking of dedication, to my most recent views. I've had a resurgence in the past week and a half of my videos, and I just can't thank you guys enough. One of my videos has hit over 200 views for the first time ever for me on any platform, and I was just blown away. I'm I'm not saying I don't know what you guys see, because I can clearly see what you guys see, obviously, but I just don't know what you guys see. I I was so blown away when I went to go check my metrics, and I just kept watching the number climb and climb over the weekends, and it just culminated in just this huge like boom of views, and I was on my YouTube. So big shout out to you guys. You guys have done that. We've done that over here on Twitch, because I get my Twitch streamers first. I got to give some love to them first too. I love each and every single one of my followers. Thank you for following me for this past uh week, day, month, year, this entire Twitch journey. I appreciate every single one of you all. But enough with that. Enough with the intros. Y'all know who it is. It's Otta09. And we are here for season 1, episode 13, part 2 of Watch Club Empresses in the Palace. Now, chat. Empresses in the Palace, if you guys don't know, chat, haven't caught a clue just yet. Empresses in the Palace, also known as The Legend of Zhen Huan, is a 2011 Chinese television series based on the novel of the same name by the author Liu Lianzi. Now, Watch Club. I'm super excited. My clubbers, I'm super excited. I've been holding back part 2 of the script for a long time. And honestly, buckle up, put your seatbelts on, and let's fucking go. If you guys don't remember, we left off episode 61. Because as you can see, episode 13 encompasses episodes 60 through 64 of Empresses in the Palace, but I split into 2 parts. So part 2 will start on episode 62. And starting that episode off, basically where we left off from before with Concubine on. She's now laying in bed with her maid, Batsu, and she's applying what looks to be like skin cream, and then she also kind of is like confirming like, oh, this will help, retain your I think it said lusciousness. I put lusciousness in parentheses. And while she's trying to get up after applying her cream, she just completely faints, right? She just faints out. But we switch to the next scene, right? And we're with Noble Consort Shi, and Jin Shi is walking into the room, right, to actually tell her what's going on with Concubine. So we see as soon as we get the scene of what's happening with Concubine on, the rumors, or not even rumors, but news in general spreads super, super fast. All the concubines, and especially Noble Consort Shi, has found out what's going on. So you can't really hide too much. You can't hide, especially if you're sick, pregnant, events like that where it has to involve groups of people, particularly the Imperial Hospital in general and like all the physicians. It's gonna get around. The maids, the servants, the eunuchs, they're all gonna just start talking, right? So as Jinshi is alerting her, um, excuse me, consort she decides to ask and invest it, I guess, because she's like, alrighty, curiosity peaked a bit. She's asking if there was a doctor who sent over to confirm her condition or what was going on, right? But Jinsi tells her that Concubine An won't allow any of the imperial physicians in. She's like, um, she's blocking them from entering the door. So Jinshi heard through gossip, which once again I was telling you guys, no matter what, there's always a tad bit juicy gossip coming through. But she finds out through gossip that some of the servants in her palace have been helping her to restrict her diet, right? And that's what's causing her to faint. She's been doing it too much, right? And Noble comes her, she's like, wait, what? Like, what? And so Jinshi explains she also found out is that apparently Concubine An is practicing ice skating, right? Since losing her voice from the machinations of Noble Lady Chi, Noble Lady Chi giving her medicinal soup fucking ruined this lady's voice out of just pure spite and jealousy, honestly. She now has to rely on just a random skill out of nowhere that she can just come up with, and it just so happens to be that she chooses ice skating, right? But Noble Consort she points out, excuse me, that there's actually a really big reason, and I wasn't actually aware of this at the time of watching the episode. That apparently in the Qing Dynasty and Qing, the what's it called? What's it called? When it's like the national sport. There you go, the national sport. Apparently, in the Qing Dynasty, one of the main national sports is ice skating. And Qing emperors in particular love ice skating, right? And so she also points out that apparently there's going to be a yearly ice skating event, that she so happens to be able to take part in if she speeds up her learning and her abilities in ice skating. So Noble Consort she onto the plan right now. She's recognizing the scheme of Concubine Ange, just starts spilling the beans about, not about, but in terms of what exactly, detail for detail. She starts breaking down exactly what Concubine An's gonna do verbatim. Because she knows at the end of the day, her being able to predict this, she points out that this will also be her downfall. This won't even be able to she may, yes, she may get momentary fame, sure. But in the end, she's sabotaging herself. Noble Consort she explains that for one in particular, to even master ice skating, you have to start from childhood. This is something you really have to put your like mind, heart, body, and soul type. Like she kind of explains it in a way that's like, oh, okay, you really have to dedicate your entire livelihood to this, right? Especially when it requires, the level of life and like weightlessness that she's trying to achieve in such a short amount of time. That that in itself, because this is how she's restricting. I mean, this is why she's restricting her diet. That in itself, forcing her to learn skills that would take years, decades to learn, with two, restricting her diet. Not only is she constantly putting herself through too much, she's obviously feigning the background. Noble Consort, she also points out that because she's trying to compensate, for all the years that she's been in this palace and just, pretty much been stationary, if not like sedentary, I believe the word is. She like trying to compensate with this extreme dieting, it's gonna hurt her beauty too. So this is not even a double-edged sword, but a triple like edged sword. She's getting hit from all angles. Her weight is suffering, so her health is suffering. Then she's also pushing her physical limit, so that's probably some mental trauma, some mental pain. And then her actual physical appearance, her beauty, the main thing these women have to rely on in the harem, is just being thrown to the wayside because of what she's doing, because of the results she's trying to achieve so quickly, right? And so the crux of it all, the thing that really makes it even worse, because I thought it ended there, to be honest. I was like, well, damn, what is she gonna? Maybe that's why she was applying the cream at the beginning of the episode, because all that dieting's making her look hollow and not necessarily plump and full of life like the emperor typically goes after, you know? We also come to find out that with the combination of all these things, it's still not enough, right? That's it's funny because after doing everything, after trying to compensate in so many ways, trying to take so many shortcuts, it's still not enough. And Noble Consort, she knows this. She actually knows the only way to achieve the results in such a short amount of time that concubine An wants so badly is that she has to take this really fucked up pill, this really bad drug. It's called the muscle resting drug, right? And the reason why it's bad is because it has musk in it, right? And if she's rendered infertile by the musk, she can't get pregnant. Even if she were to get pregnant, it would never go to full term. Yo, F Live, what's up? How you doing, bro? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I had some bullshit happen to me earlier in the day, but I handled it. We bounced back. We're back on the grind here, and we're enjoying our watch club. But right now, some really crazy shit's happening. I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you've been noticing. But like concubine An, once again, physically, mentally, and like you can say parasocially because of like the beauty and the aspect that, that weighs on her, especially when it comes to like attracting the emperor and whatnot. All those three categories being severely affected still does not do it, still doesn't allow her to compensate for her lack. Case in point, you can't squish 10 years worth of training and trial and error and failure and practice and understanding and building and muscle retention into 10 days. There's no fucking way. And so we're actually brought to light that she has to take this really crazy drug called the muscle resting drug. And that, like I said earlier, that in itself is crazy because that has musk in it. Musk is known to harm women in their reproductive organs. There you go. And reproductive organs. It renders them infertile. It's crazy. And concubine An, knowing all of this, knowing every single A to Z point of this plan, still knows that concubine, she doesn't have to lift a finger. Concubine An's gonna do all the work. Concubine An is gonna have all of this planned out. And Jin Shi is like, oh, well, we have to tell her. And Concubine, she's like, oh, we don't have to tell her shit. Concubine An is familiar with spices and scents and mixing incense and things like that, right? She's gonna know what's in this pill. She's not gonna just have like someone concoct it or find the recipe and concoct it and not know what's gonna go into it, right? There's nothing that Noble Consort she has to do. It's to her, it's just funny that it's happening this way. It's funny that she doesn't have to lift a finger in order for concubine An to be dealt with in such a finite way, because her not being able to get pregnant will pretty much assure that yes, she might be able to gain power, but it will assure for the time being that she won't be able to sway or pull the emperor to her side or to her domain in any way, shape, or form using her child. You know what I'm saying? Or using her particular child, because obviously these women go for sons, they go for princes as a way to fight for the throne. But if they get a princess, if they get a daughter, they still not necessarily manipulate. They still manipulate, yes, but in a different manner. Moving on, though, we're getting a little off course here. Let's hop back in. But like we said, concubine An very much aware of what's in the pill. Does Noble Consort she doesn't have to do anything, but Jinshi again for she brings up she also happens to hear there's a method, lamb flour apparently, to dissolve the toxic musk once it's inhaled or not inhaled, once it's dissolved into the body. You can go ahead and soak yourself in it apparently, and it would remove it. And she's like, concubine An surely has to have heard of this too. If I've heard it, she's probably had someone tell her about it. But noble consortry, once again, always coming out on top, always understanding the seeing the bigger picture and seeing everything in its entirety. Laughs, and she's like, if such a miracle thing existed, why, when other powerful women of other dynasties, of other harems who took the drug, never got pregnant, never recorded, heard, seen, witnessed pregnancy at all? So she knows for a fact that this plan is doomed to from start to finish, no matter what. And I got a kick out of this too, to be honest. I'm gonna let you know I got just a little kick out of this because if all of this goes down exactly like so, it's funny. It's so fucking funny because it's like concubine on only like literally has been taking um contraceptives since being under the empress and having to deal with the empress's rule from like the beginning of her promotions. So from her being, I think she went from an attendant to a noble lady to a concubine. So from her jumping from attendant, it's two promotions. She's been having to deal with the empress and not being able to bear children. And it's so funny that now she's trying to once again seek favor, climb the ladder, get another promotion, but at the cost of not being able to ever bear children. And it's like, is it ever worth it? Is it ever worth it? Maybe because she thinks there's other ways. Maybe she truly believes she'll be able to soak the musk out of her. Who fucking knows? Who fucking knows, right? But anyways, we immediately switch over to the empress and she's in her palace, right? And she's talking to her maid. And conveniently, she's asking about the muscle resting drug and if concubine Han has received it. Her maid is like, coincidentally, concubine Han had already had someone secretly make the pill and was taking it, right? And of course, the empress, sick as ever, she's I like literally notated that she sickly smiles, which reminds me that like yes, she probably smirked and probably like turned her head to the side or something and laughed. And it's true because the empress knows that at the end of the day she'll be able to control a concubine who doesn't want kids versus a concubine who does, you know? Mm. But we go to concubine An's palace now, and like I said, she's already taken these pills, and she's actually sitting down in like her dining area, if you will, and she's talking with her maid, and she's talking about like the effects of the pill, and her maid's like, surely, you can soak yourself in the lamb flower, and concubine on rolls her eyes, and she's like, oh please, shit doesn't exist. And her maid's like, well, why are you doing this? Like, well, I don't get it. And concubine An's like, oh, you don't even understand. Like, I hate every single like she literally like quotes that she hates them for putting her in this corner. And it's like she, as you can see here, she always absolves herself from anything. She's always the victim. It's always me, and they did it. It's always they, and it's never me. And it's really pathetic because even if you felt so helpless, if you think about it, at the beginning of the series, she betrayed Zhen Huan for no entire fucking reason. She just became insecure about a misunderstood situation, and rather than trust what like her quote unquote sister, her JJ, she sits here and betrays her instead as a form of protection, but then gets mad at the form of protection she sought when the grass isn't greener on the other side, and she now has to be forced to take contraceptions. Talking too fast. She's forced to take contraceptions years for years and years and years on end. So she's sitting up here complaining and moaning and bitching about how she hates being put into this corner because she's so helpless and she's unable to disobey the empress. And it's like, you wouldn't even have to obey the empress had you not jumped to conclusions, had you just waited, had you just calmed down and not had been so insecure about the situation. It's too late now. It's too late now, Chad. She can't go back now. And Zhen Huan, Sorry, I had to turn up the mic. And Zhen Huan made sure she knew it. She's like, oh, with the way you treated me in the past, I'll make sure to never let you down. I'll give you all the help you ever will need. Zhen Huan knows, like, ain't no forgiving you for the snake shit you pulled on me. Nah, baby, we're gonna make sure you never have a good time. But that being said, New Year's Eve comes around and we have the ice skating event, and it's beautiful. I do really love this scene. I don't know if it was like a stage they set up or if they were on an actual like frozen lake, but it really was pretty. We've had like the world, like it's a like a what you call a display. There you go, of the banner colors and the flags, and it's like a synchronized skating event type thing. It's like a whirlwind of and flurry of colors, and it's super cool. And also, the scene in itself is set up like a banquet style, And I love banquet scenes, chat. I just love that shit. There's nothing but drama at a banquet scene. Nothing but drama. And we have the Empress on one side, noble consort Shi on the other, and all the other consorts and concubines scattered around, as well as other princes and royal family members, I'm assuming. With the exception of the Empress Dowager, as she's sick, and she probably can't like sit in this cold weather for too long, right? But anyways, like I said, while we watch like all the banner colors display, we have up next like a whole series of female skaters that come out. They're like dressed like maidservants, and they're carrying blossom branches. And to me, I was confused because I was like, wait, what's happening? Is that like a signifier of like their national flower or something? I was like, oh, I don't know if that's supposed to be what's happening. And then the scene fades into a really beautiful like memory the emperor has of when he first encountered Zhen Huan in the snow blossom fields, and she was putting her New Year's Eve wish on the tree. And he actually ends up reciting the same wish poem slash poem, because it wasn't really a wish, but it was more like a poem uh that she once read. And she's like, "Oh, you remembered." Aw. And of course, the Empress, with her ass, her stinking ass, always gotta ruin some shit, always gotta steal the spotlight, starts to mention a poem of her own that her sister, you remember the first Empress, um, would speak on New Year's Eve. And she was like, "Oh, you remember when my sister would always recite such poems?" Um, and the emperor's like, "Yeah, you're right. That was real." And the emperor, of course, indulges her, right? But of course, in my opinion, I feel like noble consort she kind of stole the spotlight back. Thank you. She was like, anyways, and next thing we know, before any of like that becomes a thing, Concubine On comes striding gleefully out onto the ice skating stage slash rink, whatever you want to call it, and she's doing an ice skating routine. And she pretty much steals the spotlight from everyone at this point. No one's able to say anything. Everyone's all eyes on her, all eyes on me, basically. Tupac. And the emperor, of course, is just blown away. He's just like wholly enticed by her performance, and eventually he gets up to greet her at the end, like towards the end of the stage itself where he was sitting, and he makes this whole show of, "Oh, but I thought you were sick, and you're wearing such thin clothing. Oh my god, are you okay? What about your health?" Like he, you know, just macking on her basically, chat, just laying it all down. And so of course she has to, lay it down herself, and she answers back, "Oh, I wanted to do something for the emperor. Go ahead and punish me. I know I'm not supposed to be out, blah blah blah." All that bullshit. Basically just making a show of this on its own. And all the other concubines are clearly uncomfortable with what's happening. But like I said, in the end, um sorry, I need water. Did I not bring water with me? No, it's on the other side. There we go. Hydration station. Oh my god. I needed that. I really did. I really fucking did. Oh my god. RIP to your ears if you're wearing headsets, because I am peeking a little into their yellow. My bad. I'm black, okay? So I'm expressive. Alright? Like there's I don't know what you want me to do at this point. It is. Concubine on walks away with the emperor. All the other concubines, including the empress a little bit, though she kind of acts like, oh yes, this is totally beautiful and faded and wow, blah blah blah. Plays it up basically. Concubine on and the emperor walk back together, right? And so we see lately the emperor actually ends up favoring her a lot more than what people like intended, especially noble consort Shi. And she kind of like speculates on whether or not if she'll end up being promoted, if concubine on will be promoted to consort. And Jinxi and Huan B are kind of giving like their 2 cents on the matter, and they're like, oh, she kind of doesn't deserve it, but basically talking their shit when the emperor decided to suddenly just walk into the room, right? Everyone's a little flustered, a little like, oh shit. Nothing, we weren't saying anything, right? But noble consort, she's somewhat unfazed, and she greets him, and like they start talking about things in the harem and whatnot, and like how like concubine aunt isn't really like liked by many of the other consorts in concubine, and how noble consort she is pretty much the only one who still treats her like an actual sister, right? But then the emperor, bearer of bad news, is like, I have to talk to you about something. And noble consort, she's like, oh well, what is it? Well, I'll help you with whatever, so as long as I don't overstep, my boundaries or whatnot. And he's like, well, it's about your parents. And she's like, what about my parents? And we find out that Guajia Yimin, which is the father of noble lady Qi, and like many other court officials, are opposing noble consort Xi's parents visiting the palace. They really think that the emperor is using this as like a way to like display his affection and favor for noble consort Xi, and they're kind of like, oh, you're being too unfair with your favors and you're showing too much of it for her, right? And so of course this upsets noble consort Xi, and pretty much she kind of goes in, not like a rage or anything like that, but she kind of like ends up immediately like, what the fuck, like she gets pissed. She's like, you already understand that my father has like these false criminal charges against him, you know um so even with them saying all of this, it's under pretense, it shouldn't be a problem, right? And so she's like, also her son, Prince Hong Yin, which is, her newborn son. She wonders, what people are going to say about him when he gets older, and they constantly call his grandfather a criminal, right? And so she ends up asking the emperor to review the case against her father, as, like she said, the charges are bogus. They're fabricated against him. It's bullshit, and she doesn't feel like it's fair that her father has to continue to suffer for such bullshit. And unfortunately, the emperor denies her request. He's like, open up your father's case kind of involves, pretty much pulling on some loose ends that would cause some feathers to ruffle, and we don't need that right now. The court needs to be a little bit more stabilized, and ultimately I can't afford to have any more unstabilization added. And so noble consort she backs down, knowing sooner or later, it's the truth that'll come out. She won't have to deal with this anymore. So she says she'll wait. Oh, that water. God damn. God damn. I feel like, honestly, humans are made from 75% of water, but I'm made from like 78, because that extra 3% really be kicking my ass, dog. I drink so much water throughout the day. I'm not calling myself water champ. I'm really not. I just notice I need water. Like, fuck all this soda. I like tea. I'll fuck with tea. I love boba tea. I love steamed tea, hot tea, sweet tea, all that shit. Um, but juice and sodas, like obviously I'll drink it if I'll go out to get Wendy's or if I'm getting some fast food. If they don't have like what I want, like in terms of tea or water, I'll get a soda, sure. But if it's not water and like I'm home or I'm over somebody's house or I'm chilling, bitch, I don't even care. Fuck it. I'll be at the club. Don't put no damn juice in my face. Get me some water. It's hot as hell. We live on the damn East Coast, okay? Don't fuck with me and having water. Anyways, back to Watch Club. Oh yeah, we were talking about Emperor denying her request, Noble Consort she being okay. She's like, fine, fuck it, we'll deal with it later. Won't necessarily deal with it now. In the next scene, we see Noble Consort she's younger sister Yurao and Prince Shin. They're getting to know each other a little bit. Oh, you keep laughing, but it's true, F Life. It's true. 78%. Like there's an extra layer around my brain or something, bro. Like the membrane needs to be like a little moist, you know? Especially at night, bro. I'll wake up like 3 a.m. Gotta use the bathroom. Don't give a fuck about nothing else. First though, let me get a drink of water. I have bottles of water literally next to me at night just to make sure I'm hydrated when I wake up. It's just imperative. But like I said, Urel, Prince Shin getting to know each other, right? And we kind of see that Urel's left an impression on Prince Shin, and not like in the sense that he dislikes her, but when he goes out riding with his brother Prince Gao, he's kind of distracted about what she was saying about the royal family and how like who cares about like if you're a royal or not. It's really about who you are on the inside. And she's like, all royals are snobbish and shit. And Prince Shin asks Prince Gao, do you think all royal people are snobbish? And Prince Gao's like, who gives a fuck, bro? Like, honestly, being a royal isn't all that great. I'm gonna be real with you. Like, other than having undeserved power, what else? We live nice? Sure. Sure. And so Prince Shin is like, oh, okay. Yeah, there was a girl who said the same thing and like how nobles and royals ain't shit. And he was like, huh, that's funny. And I was laughing at the entire interaction because I was like, what the fuck is that supposed to do for him? Like, is that, are you giving him advice or are you giving him your opinion at this, like, what's happening? Maybe both, honestly. Two things can be, two things can be true at the same time, honestly. But soon after, we get back with Noble Consort Shi, and she's at her palace, and Physician Wen has come to do a routine checkup. He lets Noble Consort Shi, like he gives her an update on concubine Hui and her pregnancy, and she's doing great. She's, stable, nothing's wrong with her or the baby. But he also lets her know that, he's attending to her father's health, and so far he's good. He's recovered from his disease from Ninguta, and that at the present moment, he won't be able to go check up on him again, but as soon as concubine Hui gives birth, he'll go check on her father's health, as like obviously as like, I want to take care of you, not necessarily I scratch your back, you scratch my back, but more or less like as we're family type thing. When after all that's said and done, Yurao comes rushing in the room with the maid behind her, and like, to me it was pretty obvious, like the maid's looking all like to the side, like what the fuck, and she's like intently staring at where Physician Wen was doing like his checkup, like doing the pulse reading, because I assume she was staring because he flinches away when she walks in, but I was like, oh, okay, maybe like he just jumped or something. As like humans are trained, especially when people walk into rooms, humans are trained to react to like noise and movement. You know, it's not necessarily on you. Like, you know, main character syndrome aside, it's okay if like three or four people look up in your direction when you walk into the room. But clearly, this maid did not get that memo. She doesn't understand that because she's just like, what the fuck was that? Like, she's just staring, like, intently, too. Like, and I'm like eyeballing the fuck out of that scene, right? But they leave, and Su Peshong comes in, Eunuch Su comes in, and he lets her know, lets Noble Consort she know that the Emperor wants to go visit her son with her later. But he also mentions, that Prince Gao hurt himself, right? And that he wishes Huan Bi was here because he's noticed that she kind of has like a soft spot for him, and he knows that she would want to know, right? And immediately, Noble Consort, she's like gripping the furniture. She's like, "What? What the fuck?" Like, she's like, "Why did nobody tell me?" And Su Peshong's like, well, we would tell the Empress, because she's head of the harem and would handle these things, you know? Um, and she's like, yeah, but the Empress is busy dealing with the Empress Dowager who's super sick and blase squaze, pretty much trying to cover up for the fact that she's super concerned for him. And Su Peshong's like, okay. Like, he's not questioning it. He was just more or less, okay, that's not weird, but sure. And he's like, you know what? Even if you didn't ask, I would have told you because Juan B would want to know, you know? He kind of like plays it off like that, right? And he just says that he's not hurt or anything. He's just a little under the weather. And the fever that he had, a couple like years ago, a couple seasons ago, has returned, right? So immediately after Eunuch Su, who leaves, Noble Consort Shi, who's still in the room with Physician Wen from the checkup earlier, asks for a favor. Can Physician Wen go check up on Prince Gao and make sure he's okay? And Physician Wen is somewhat confused. He's like, I thought you were over him. Being jealous as fuck, honestly. Like, get a grip, my man. Like, she does not want you. She does not. Like, she literally went back to the Emperor rather than go to you. You see how crazy that is? You see how crazy that is? Right? Like, she would literally rather give up peace and not having to deal with like all the bullshit of the harem and scheming and plotting for you. Like, she went back to that for you. Like, you see how like truly undesirable you are, bro. And like, I'm just like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you acting like, yes, concerned older brother, but you're a little too concerned? Because clearly, yes she's supposed to be over him, but it was by force, not by her own admission. Like, she had to come back into the Emperor's life because she thought Prince Gao was dead, and the situation that she was in was very unfavorable at the time. So rather than continue to suffer and then not even be able to help her family at all, she went back with the Emperor. So what do you mean you thought she was over him? What the fuck? And so she's like, he actually caught the cold because of me. And she's referring to that time when she was still Mocho and she was at Lingyun Peak, and she had got a really bad fever. Like, she was burning up. Like, her skin was red, her temperature was rising. Nothing was helping. Physician Wen couldn't do anything. And Prince Gao literally he took off his clothes, like his top and bottom, and he still had like his undergarment layers on, laid in the snow, and then laid next to her in bed as to cool her down, pretty much acting like Twilight, like Jacob Edward from Twilight, like hugging on fucking Bella and shit. Like, he pretty much acted as her personal like cooler for the night or whatnot to help break her fever. And so she's like, he caught that fever from that time, and I feel bad. And this is just because I want to return that favor. And so he's like, okay, I guess. Well, he didn't say it like that, but he's like, he gets it. He's like, all right, fine, fair enough. I'll go check up on him. And so, we see that as he, or not as he leaves, after he leaves, Noble Consort, she's kneeling down and she's praying in front of her shrine. And she's probably doing this for what I can assume is Prince Gao's safety and like making sure that he makes it out like alive and unharmed and whatnot. And as soon as she's doing this, we see Huan Bi running like from the front door into the shrine. And she kind of gets the picture and she knows like, okay, she's kneeling down. All right, let me just chill out, make sure everything's okay before I start just come rushing in here. And immediately, like, both of them have this unspoken rule that yes, Huan Bi is like she likes and is in love with Prince Gao, but Huan Bi doesn't actively show it or she doesn't actively act on it unless it's not necessary, but like honestly and truly, she's only ever acted on it when once again everyone thought he was dead, and then dun dun 2-3 months later he came back and wasn't dead. Like she ran up and hugged him. But aside from that, she doesn't act on her emotions. So when she sees that noble consort, she is kneeling down and what once again everyone assumes is praying in safety for Prince Gao, she knows to, all right, I'm gonna kneel down and I'm gonna just wait for a moment, right? And noble consort, she, like we said, this unspoken rule that she knows about how Huan Bi feels, asks her like to go visit Prince Gao in her stead, as she'll be able to do the things that noble consort she can't. And Jade's like happy but somewhat confused because she's like, wait a minute now, I can't just go running out, saying, hey, Prince Gao, I'm coming to see. So noble consort, she's like, all right, make sure you let Su Peshong know so you can get proper permission to go see him. And so, true to her word, Huan Bi comes rushing back out, and we see that she's nursing Prince Gao back to health. She's wiping the sweat off his brow. She's feeding him soup. She's making sure that he's like hydrated in the night because, first of all, he needs water too. I need water and he needs water too. So good. So good. And so eventually, Prince Gao, like after being nursed for a couple days by her, does wake up. And he kind of wakes up and accidentally mistakes her for noble consort Shi. And that's a whole can of worms that, like, it's like, damn. It's like, yeah, I know I look like my sister, but shit, I'm a different person. But he's kind of anxious when he realizes it's Huan Bi, and he's like, oh, Jesus, okay. And he kind of requests for her to go to return to help noble consort Shi, right? Like, make sure that she's okay because she needs Huan Bi more than Huan Bi needs to be here taking care of him. And Huan Bi like assures him that it's fine that I'm here. I've even got permission to be here, and that I came of my own volition. I wasn't sent here by noble consort Shi, and that, I will stay and take care of you. And he brushes her off and turns to the side and just doesn't give a fuck and is like, whatever. And I feel a little bad for Huan Bi because I'm just like, oh, bro, like, I get it. You love Zhen Huan, but like, Huan Bi's trying. Don't do that to her. Anyways, as we move on from that, oh, Jesus. What's going on? I don't understand why my throat is so dry. Anyways, like I was saying, back to noble consort Shi. We're still at her palace. Jinshi is I don't know if she's like doing her nails, but she's like applying this wrap to noble consort Shi's nails. And she brings up the topic of the emperor and how, he doesn't visit the palace, or noble consort Shi's palace in particular. And the consort kind of pretty much brushes it off as him being busy, and that he'll eventually come when he wants. And so Jinshi still kind of makes a point that, well, also I've noticed that the Empress is looking really energetic lately, and that Noble Lady Chi is somehow able to get the nuns from outside of the palace to come pray over her, as she's having a hard time dealing with something. And so, excuse me, Jinshi also kind of like apologizes because she's like, I didn't even notice at first, but I wanted to make a point of telling you as when I did notice, as it's something important, right? And after talking with Jinshi and Yu Rao and about like Wanbi and like Prince Gao and what's going on with them, and how Noble Consort Shi feels like Wanbi has like the freedom to do what she can and like has the ability to maneuver and care for Prince Gao. And Ural kind of interprets that as like, oh, you wish you had like, freedom to move about and not be stuck in the palace. She doesn't really understand the extent of what the consort's talking about. And I think that's because not necessarily, yeah, she doesn't know, but I think Ural's a little naive about like everything that's happening outside of knowing that the royal family, while yes, royal, isn't necessarily, the best people or persons or individuals on the planet. Anyways, both are talking about pretty much like how uh what's it called? What's it called? Yeah, we said freedom, but like how one's like identity, there you go. How one's identity can be like wrapped up in the royal family and like the royal palace in general. And all of a sudden, as like all everybody's having their conversations and putting in their 2 cents, the Empress's head eunuch walks in and he announces that the Empress wants to speak with Noble Consort Shi. And before we even get to that, we see Wanbi and Prince Gao together. Both are outside and they're talking about Noble Consort Shi's life. And they're talking about how, just like a kite flowing or bellowing into the wind, it's just as it's flying higher and higher and soaring and, like ascending, it's still only tethered by such a tenuous, piece of string that could snap at any time. And Juan B is like, yes, but this string is a little stronger. Juan B is pretty much like assured in the fact that Noble Consort Shi has children to rely on, and the love of the Emperor to rely on as well. She's not easily snapped, if you will. Her rope, her line isn't easily snapped. And of course, I feel like this scene is the perfect setup. This scene with Prince Gao and Huanbi is a perfect setup because literally in the next scene, Noble Consort Shi is at the Empress's palace. She's at Jingren Palace, and apparently Noble Lady Chi is accusing her of having an affair with Imperial Physician Wen. Just out of nowhere, hardballing her like, you are having an illicit affair, and I'm here to expose it. And honestly, it's not like I didn't see this coming, but at the same time, I didn't think it would come like this per se. I didn't think like the Empress would. I thought they would try and like set her up. Like Imperial Physician Wen would come and like do a reading or a check, a pulse reading or something like that, and then as he's kneeling down to like talk to her about something, they catch her in the act. But no, and they kind of do it this way. And strangely enough, we see Noble Lady Ning, who's the first to speak after the accusations are being lodged around and whatnot. She's the first to speak, and she's not necessarily defending Noble Consort Shi, but she's not like, she doesn't believe Noble Lady Chi is like being sincere with her words. She's like, how are you aware that she has an affair going on? You can't just accuse people of shit like that, that kind of suspicions. Like, I don't think you're being truthful here. But on the other hand, from Noble Lady Ning, we see our newcomers, concubine Jen and Aten Khan, ready and willing to add fuel to the fire, right? We see that they were also very willing and ready to bully concubine on. Now here they are once again jumping on the hate train, pretty much, and they're getting ready to jump Noble Consort Shi. And they suggest that maybe the affair itself has been going on for a while. Imperial physician Wen is seen as like a friend of the family, right? And he also proposed to her before she entered the concubine selection, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? That's just all hearsay. What really is the problem is Noble Lady Chi has apparently evidence to support her claims. She brings out a maid, and the maid's name is Bing Er, and apparently she used to serve Noble Consort Shi's family, but when they were convicted, once again falsely, when her father was convicted falsely, and everyone was shipped off or sold off, Noble Lady Chi bought her, right? And so Noble Lady Chi asked Binerd to confirm to the Empress about Imperial Physician Wen's marriage proposal to Noble Consort Shi before she entered the palace. And to me, it's very evident, and I'm sure when you guys have watched the episode, or if you have already watched the episode, lol, and you're actually fast forward, it's very evident that Bina is scared of Noble Lady Chi, and she's like kind of shying away from her as if she knows that um if she says something wrong, something can happen, and it's kind of alluding to like maybe she's being forced to do this, like maybe Bina's being what's it called when you like not you yes you force someone, but it's another word. Blackmail. There you go. It looks like she's being blackmailed, right? And all the concubines go back and forth, and they're all talking about whether or not she's innocent or she's guilty, and oh well, you can't say this and you can't say that, and this is all hearsay. Noble Lady Chi apparently again, evidently again, has prepared another witness, and it's in the form of Fei Wen. You remember, if you guys don't remember, Fei Wen was the maidservant who was punished by the emperor when noble consort she was giving birth. And you remember when she like coughed and she had like a little sneeze, and the emperor was like, "How could you be sick right now? What's going on?" And Jen she found out that Fei Wen just opened the window. She's that maid, right? And I remember in last episode of Watch Club, episode 13, part 1, we remember seeing that the Empress conveniently, literally conveniently, had her maid Jiangchu stay behind to talk with Fei Wan. And I knew then that she was plotting something, but I thought she was plotting like a spy. Well, yeah, no, maybe she did plant a spy, but I didn't know she was gonna. But I feel like the maid we saw that walked in with Yu Rao was, I thought that was the spy they were gonna use. So maybe Fei Wen and that maid were working together or whatnot. Who knows? But Fei Wen said once again she recalls the scene that when uh Imperial Physician Wen walked in to do the pulse reading for Noble Consort Shi, he was looking a little sus. He kind of like lurched back and his hand jumped back a little bit, right? And so she brings up that scene as proof that when she walked in, he looked a little strange when doing the checkup. It looked a little too intimate. And after we hear Fei Wen's testimony, the Empress decides that this is a big problem and this needs to be handled accordingly. So she summons Imperial Physician Wen to apparently further investigate, right? And before we get more in depth with that, we end up switching over to concubine Hui and her palace. And she is now heavily pregnant. Heavily pregnant. Like, probably about like 7.5, 8 months. She's not there yet, but she's there. And she's looking extremely worried. She's kind of contemplating about what's going on with Noble Consort Shi, right? Her maid does reason with her a little bit, and she kind of says to tell her to stay put for now. You know, you can't really go anywhere, and the Empress Dowager doesn't want you to go anywhere right now. You have to think about your baby. Everything will be okay. Besides, Noble Consort Shi is favored by the Emperor. The Emperor won't let anything happen to her. You know, she's pretty much reasoning with her just to calm down. Don't get too excited about anything, right? And after that, the Empress's eunuch soon walks in to summon Imperial Physician Wen. And on his way to going to the Empress's palace, Imperial Physician Wen passes by Concubine Hui's palace. And we all know him being the father, him being the daddy, very worried that, never having been summoned by the Empress before, like, maybe I should go put all my ducks in a row and maybe I should go see Concubine Hui right quick. So he kind of makes up the excuse that he has to follow the Empress Dowager's orders and he has to check Concubine Hui's pulse at her request. So if he could do that before heading over to the Empress, two birds with one stone. And so the eunuch does allow him to go in to check Concubine Hui's pulse. So when he's there having a brief moment with her, with Concubine Hui, and it's loving and it's very sweet and as intimate as it could get, because of course can't really get too intimate. She's technically the wife of the emperor. But it's very abrupt and very short, right? He leaves and he does tell her that, I'll be back before, you know it, and I'll come do another pulse read, or not a pulse reading. I'll come check on you to make sure everything's okay with your medicine and whatnot. And she's assured by this. Concubine Hui is like, okay, I'll see you when you get. She's like, come back soon. Pretty much having once again, like I said, that very intimate moment. But that doesn't last. That intimacy and that heartwarming feeling doesn't last, because shortly after Imperial Physician Wen arrives at the Empress, her palace, immediately the eunuch rolls up the doctor's sleeve and it shows the veranda print, like the bamboo print on his sleeve that Fei Wen used as evidence before to denote that he had his sleeves rolled up in an improper manner and was improperly, once again, touching and pretty much resting himself against, which would be seen, like, we would see it as just normal behavior here in 2022. But back then, it was not seen proper to have his sleeves rolled up and was intimately touching the skin of a concubine. And so, Noble Lady Chi becomes quick to hop on this evidence and just is like, oh, look, I told you, it's really apparent now that obviously something is going on. But Consort Jing comes in and she's using logic and she's using a little bit of reason. She's like, that's obviously not enough to prove anything. As anyone would, like, assume that the print isn't necessarily innocuous, or the print isn't necessarily inferring that, or Fei Wen seeing the print doesn't necessarily infer that anything inappropriate was happening while he went to go check up on noble consort Shi. It just may be that he just rolled up his sleeve or whatnot. But we don't really get much of anything else out of this. The episode ends with that. And honestly, final thoughts, chat, are how are we gonna get out of this one? Okay. How are we gonna get out of this one? When I fucking watched this, I was like, what are we gonna do right now? Because they don't have a solid case, but I want to see what Noble Lady Chi and what her lackeys and what everyone's, like, particularly the Empress, is gonna try and do to pin this on Zhen Huan and Imperial Physician Wen. This is fucking crazy. This is insane, bro. But anyways, we start right where we left off. We are dealing with some heavy accusations lodged at us right now. Okay. Noble Consort Shi confronts like Fei Wen and kind of like starts putting on that domineering aspect of her personality that she like rarely shows off, but when she does, oh baby, best believe she is coming for you, right? She pretty much she makes it expressly known that if we continue in this path and we continue this investigation and you continue saying what you're saying, and Noble Consort Shi is saying this to Fei Wen, you can never return to ever serve at my palace again. And Fei Wen's like, "Oh, I'm sorry to have offended you, but of course I will try my best to serve, whichever mistress or master that accepts me. Trying to. I see everyone loves to pretend to be so haughty and so arrogant. When you're shaking in your boots, you know for a fact that shit's about to get real, and you can only put on this false bravado to help like save face and yourself. But in the end, do you really think this is gonna work? Like, these are some heavy accusations, and I'm worried it might damage Consort Shi's reputation, but I don't think these charges are gonna fucking stick. Like, this is crazy, right? And so we move on to like the actual like meat and potatoes of the scene. And noble Consort Shi decides to like expose Fei Wen for having a poor memory. She kind of discredits her as a witness overall, and her story about seeing Imperial Physician Wen's like sleeve print and him acting inappropriate in front of noble Consort Shi. And really, for the first time, in like the open, we see the Empresses and the noble Consort Shi's camps. They face off like head to head and aggressively, and we see like Consort Jing going against Concubine An. We see Noble Lady Qi kind of barking up against Noble Consort Shi. We see Consort Duan trying to, interject lightly, but when she does, it's with reason. Like, everyone's presenting themselves in their own way, but they're also trying to fight for, their respective camps. And this is probably, like I said, the first time we see it done so openly. That being said, that whole face off in itself eventually kind of gets like heated, yes, but it gets to a breaking point, and that breaking point is the topic of Noble Consort Shi and when she stayed at Ganlu Temple, and was known as Mocho, right? And things kind of go from bad to worse here because the Emperor arrives, and it's like, all right, now you know for a fact, and I mean bad to worse for like Noble Lady Qi and everyone who set this up. You know for a fact the Emperor is automatically gonna believe Noble Consort Shi. Like, he's too enamored and too in love with her not to. But for the simple fact that for all the show and for all the promotion he's done for her and parading her around, he definitely can't sit here and look like a fool for having done that. You know what I'm saying? And so, seizing her opportunity, because as soon as he walks in, and mind you, he is very vexed, right, at having to be here. He like literally says verbatim, "Why do I always have to come to the harem, with all these problems?" And of course, the Empress is like, "Oh, forgive me," and he's like, "Yeah, forgive you, bullshit, because you let this shit happen." Like, that's the air, the tone that we're getting from him walking in right now, right? But of course, Noble Lady Qi, who's oblivious and can only see, the short-term goal of telling and trying to get her point across, runs to the Emperor, kneels before him, and starts to tell her story about how Noble Consort Shi is having an affair with Imperial Physician Wen. And the Emperor slaps the hell out of her and calls her a slut. Like, he uses the S word, chat. Like, slut. I was like, oh my god, like, not even like idiot or nothing. No, the S word? Okay, you were using big words here. And he kind of like admonished her at like, for her like even bringing up such absurdity, and how this doesn't even, this isn't even something that should be happening right now because it's so inconceivable. And of course, the Empress, who we know is backing this up, we know she is. Empress defends Noble Lady Qi, and she defends her by insisting that it's all a misunderstanding. They should completely investigate the matter. We don't want the reputation of noble consort Shi to come to harm, which I'm worried about legitimately. So it's like, okay, she has a small point, and the emperor agrees too. Like he sees it. So he sits down to hear what they have to say, but he tells noble lady she won't come out of this, unharmed. If he finds out she's been lying. And so once again, they always love to do this. Before we get even more, we switch up to Huan Bi and Yu Hao, and they're talking at Noble Consort Shi's palace, and Noble Consort she isn't there, like she's with the Empress, and Huan Bi, she kind of happens to bring up, where is she? Like, oh, what happened? And Yu Hao's like, oh, she was summoned by the Empress, and Huan Bi's like, okay, that's a little odd, but I'll just wait here and see. When all of a sudden a servant from noble lady Ning out of nowhere comes to inform them of what's happening, like with all the accusations being lodged at noble consort Shi, the emperor being there, and all that good shit. And at this point, noble lady Qi has brought in someone from Ganlu Temple as evidence, and you all, meaning Yurao and Huan Bi, need to go to Ganlu Temples yourself to find someone to combat that evidence. So Huan Bi and Yurao quickly make their plans, and they race against time to find Mo Yen. If you guys remember, Mo Yen was the nun who was very sweet and very caring and understanding, and helped Mocho at the time she was there, and made sure that she got safely to Linyan Peak. She literally carried her, used her physical body to carry her, right? And so Huan Bi stays behind, deciding to wait in the palace and look for what you call it? What did she say she was looking for? Did I not write it down? I didn't write that point down. I forgot who she was looking for. Okay, so we know that Huan Bi stayed in the palace. We know that Yu Rao and Xiao Yunzi, which is the head eunuch of noble consort Shi's palace, they go out to find Mo Yen at Ganlu Temple, as she can go back and forth. And then the maid that actually came to inform them was like, oh, I'll wait at the gate for you guys, so I can usher you in and tell you where to go and whatnot. And so we have this plan, kind of instilled to kind of rescue and help noble lady Shi in the background. But while rushing out, Yurao kind of runs into Prince Shen, who, he's understandably confused because he's like, what's going on in the palace? Why is everyone acting so strange lately? And Yurao, being a little, she's not from the palace. She doesn't really know etiquette like her sister. She kind of is very abrasive, and she explains like, my sister is being accused of adultery, and I need to go save her, move out of the way. She's kind of abrupt, and rushes past him. And finally, we do switch back to the Empress, and we switch back to her palace with noble lady Qi, who's again insisting she's had evidence, and dun dun dun, Prioress Jingbai, her rude ass, is brought back. Apparently, noble lady Qi thinking this was going to be a good idea for some reason. So noble consort Shi and Prioress Jingbai kind of have like their two words against each other, right? And honestly, Prioress Jingbai then gives her testimony, and she fucking lies through her teeth. She proceeds to downplay and just pretty much outright lie all the abuse and all the bullshit she lodged against noble consort Shi, but she tried to emphasize, tried to make sure that she threw noble consort Shi under the bus, and kind of sullied the meetings, or the meaning of the meetings that Imperial Physician Wen would come by to help noble consort Shi, because we knew that he came to help her because she got sick. She was like we said, she had fever, she had frostbite, all this crazy shit, and then she got pregnant. nothing what Jingbai was saying was true, basically, right? And so after all her saying her 2 cents, Noble Lady Chi then has prioritized Jingbai, actually physically point out and like actually identify Imperial Physician Wen in the room. She also makes sure that this now can be regarded as someone who's credible, since, not having been in the palace for so long, not having seen or known so much of the palace, quote unquote, she was still able to point out who Imperial Physician Wen was among like all the people in the room. Ooh. Water break. Hydration station. Damn it. Okay, let's. Oh, I do recycle my bottled waters, by the way. I do have a huge 2 gallon water jug, but I don't know where I put her, chat. Like, she was all like by prided out, and she had like stickers all over her, and I was like, I want to wash her, and then I washed her and never fucking found her again. I never fucking found her again. Anyways, moving on. So yeah, after Prior Xingbai has her 2 cents and, you know, explains her side of the story, quote unquote, Noble Lady kind of abruptly walks in, or excuse me, stands up and walks out. I don't know why I said walks in. Stands up and wants to walk out. And she kind of tells the Emperor she's having like a headache and all of this is making her like annoyed and she wants to leave. And he's like, the way he nods his head, I literally put in my notes, he nods his head, eyes closed, head bowed. And I'm like, yo, was the actor like trying to convey just, I don't know what he was trying to convey, honestly. But I thought it was great. I agreed. I was like, same, bro, same. I would want to leave too. But anyways, as she's leaving, as Noble Lady Ning is leaving, she kind of steps the prior string by, and she's asking her if she wanted to offer, grams, which I like these. I think she meant like a satchel or grams or something. I'm not sure, but the translation says grams. At Ganlu Temple, how much would she need? And like Jingbai gives like this really weird elaborate answer, but she kind of also insults her and is like, but you're, as you're only a noble lady and you have the Emperor's favor, 200 grams should be enough. It should suffice. And I was like, okay, that's fucking weird. I was like, good on you to just sit up here and, just outright insult people. That doesn't help your case. But after hearing the sides pretty much from everyone, and the Emperor directly, really, because I feel for the guy, sure, but he kind of directly puts himself as like, or paints himself as like the asshole here, because he looks Noble Consort Xi in the eye and he asks her himself, which I feel like, yes, he should ask. He's like, after hearing everybody's side of the story, he should ask. But the way he does it, it's like, it's almost like he's doubting her. He doesn't even, I don't know, chat. I maybe I'm biased in this way, but he paints himself to be the asshole and he asks her if she's had relations with Imperial Physician Wen. And she, Noble Consort, she, understandingly shook, kind of kneels down, and she immediately answers no. And the Empress says he believes her. But the Empress, once again, being like that fly on the wall, she kind of is like buzzing in his ear a little bit. And she's still saying or still stating like the importance of solving the case entirely and, not risking, this bringing reputational harm, blah, blah, blah. And of course, for some reason, Concubine An brings up the importance of solving this case because Noble Consort Xi is also the mother of the fourth and sixth, of the sixth prince. And it's like, yes, but why are you bringing this up right now, right? So this ends up leading to a line of questions that ended Noble Consort Xi's children possibly not being the emperors, right? And chat, we know the truth. We know they're not the Emperor's kids. We've been knew they're not the Emperor's jizz. They're Prince Gals. But we can't afford to people can't know that. Okay? People can't know that. Not our main can't lose out right now. And she won't. She won't. But her reputation might be shitted on right now. And I can't deal with any more heartbreak in terms of her losing face right now. The Empress can't get the one up. So, like we said, line of questioning kind of puts noble consort she in a weird like spotlight, kind of puts her, kind of casts a doubtful spotlight on her. There you go. That's what I was trying to say. And so this kind of also forces not necessarily the Emperor to now start questioning like certain things, but we also, well, conveniently, right? The Emperor and the Empress go back and forth on the topic of like rumors and like how like apparently they've been flying around in the palace, and how that noble consort she came back to the palace pregnant, which is sus on its own, but that she gave birth prematurely. And the Emperor is like, well, why did you allow these rumors to surface and fly around like so, right? And not to mention, noble consort she gave birth prematurely because, yeah, she literally was attacked by a whole bunch of fucking feral, crazy ass cats by noble Ning, right? And not to mention, she gave birth to Princess Long Yu prematurely. So rumors, all those rumors are bullshit, right? And so, of course, Noble Lady Chi, like I said, the Empress, Noble Lady Chi, definitely going hand to hand with this shit. They're definitely literally trying to throw every ounce of dirt on her name. No, like something has to stick. Like no matter what, something has to stick, right? And so Noble Lady Chi casts in, her fucking vote, and is like, well, actually, speaking to the Emperor, Noble Consort, she never reported or even investigated, the whole attack itself, which is suspect on its own, because it makes it seem like, did she do it herself? Did she attack herself? And if she did, what was her end goal, right? Fei Wen also decides to chime in too. Everyone's getting their 2 cents in today. That she found it strange that while noble consort she was in labor, imperial physician Wen decided to ask her if he needed to make the decision, should he save the children or should he save noble consort she? And Fei Wen's like, that's only appropriate if he were to ask the Emperor or the Empress Dowager, And all of this is now, like I said, something's gotta stick. All of this now is making shit stick, right? And so Noble Lady Shi is becoming incessant that the Emperor has to punish Noble Consort Shi, or, the Empress, and the Empress is also latching on to this idea, and that if she does get punishment, maybe give lighter punishment, she's a mother of the 6th prince, kind of making it seem like, oh yeah, well, if she does get punished, which she is deserving of apparently, let's be sympathetic, always as ever putting up this bullshit front, right? That's when we see Jinshi, she kind of steps up and she's like, she'll take any punishment for her lady, simply because she needs someone to serve her, right? Noble consort, she can't be punished. Huan Bi can't be punished. Jinshi will take the punishments for everyone, right? And conveniently, I see Concubine An is quick to tell like noble consort she that she must bear with it for now, as it's important to clear her name, and she gets that you have such a soft heart, but right now this is more important. Just basically rubbing it in, like, just, she sees the open wounds and she's taking the salt and rubbing it in the wounds, basically, at this point. And so at this point, Noble Lady Chi again ranting and raving in the background, trying to once again make anything stick, trying to just get any like bit of evidence to cast doubt and shame and sus upon sus, like she's trying to make her sus. Um and it's working. It's working. And so abruptly Prince Shen walks into the room and he apologizes, and he apologizes because obviously it's weird that he's walking into the Empress's palace while all of this is happening like that. But he's like, as he was walking, he heard so much of this, and he was like already worried about what was going on that he couldn't help but suddenly walk in and personally vouch for Noble Consort Shi, right? And that he can clearly see that she's someone who is actually trying her best, doing her best. Like she's a good person through and through, as compared to someone like Noble Consort Shi, or excuse me, Noble Consort Shi, as compared to someone as Noble Lady Chi, who is nothing but a spoiled brat, right? And Noble Lady Chi tries to interject at this, but the Emperor's had enough. He tells her to shut the hell up, and he's done. The Empress, though, who still won't let none of this go. She still can't help but try and just nudge the last piece, has now come to the extreme resort of requesting the Emperor do a blood test with the Sixth Prince, trying to be meticulous, quote unquote, careful, right? Concubine on deciding that this is her time to add fuel to the fire, deciding, blood tests really are something doctors, use to determine how someone is related. If the blood mixes, they're related. If it does, what I'm saying? Just basically being the evil bitch. Like, I really have a disdain for Concubine. She's such a fucking bitch. Like, why, right? But ultimately, the Emperor tells Noble Consort Shi that he has to do this. He'll vindicate her by doing this, as it's really the only way, right? And Noble Consort Shi, knowing that she has no choice, at the last minute swings it in her favor, and she gets the idea to do the blood test with the Sixth Prince and Imperial Physician Wen instead of the Emperor, right? Because we saw that there was a little bit of protest that we can't do this blood test with the Emperor. It'll hurt the royal body, his heavenly body, you know what I'm saying? Which I guess that was the thing back then, like drawing blood from him, if not absolutely necessary or in like life-threatening situations, would be seen as like not necessarily sinful, but as like a bad thing, right? And the Emperor agrees, right? And it still will, prove a point that she didn't have with Imperial Physician Wen, or excuse me, she didn't have an affair with Imperial Physician Wen. So the Emperor agrees, and they bring the Sixth Prince over, right? They do the blood test, and it comes back positive, bitch. Positive. You are the father. Key the Mori music, okay? Like, goddamn, right? It's confirming Imperial Physician Wen is the father. The Emperor becomes enraged, bitch. Enraged. Consort Jing kind of like holds on to him, but he knocks her down at one point, and immediately the Empress is like berating, Noble Consort Shi, and she's also like, and kill Physician Wen for his part, and kill everybody. And like, she's like trying to kill everybody off immediately, right? And so the Emperor, once again enraged, he grasps, and I don't want to say grab because I'm not trying to insinuate he hurt her, but he grasps her chin and he stares at her. He's like, why you hurt me like this? Why you betray me? I loved you, right? And like he kind of like shoves her to the ground as well, right? But with that twist, that would probably make M. Night Shyamalan like jealous, to be like honest. Noble Consort Shi, who, like he tossed her like to the side, she kind of like stood up and started leaning against the water because she looked at it in disbelief when she noticed that something was wrong with the water. And like she's screaming out, something's wrong with the water, something's wrong with the water. Nobody's paying attention. So she's like, fuck it. She grabs Eunuch Su's finger and pricks his finger, right? And immediately his blood is mixing too, right? Which is impossible because eunuchs can't reproduce. Junshi pricks her finger, her blood mixes too, right? And so the emperor's like, he turns around in disbelief. He's like, wait, what? And Imperial Physician Wen takes this chance to identify there's alum in the water, and that if alum, which is an acidic property apparently, is added to the water, it'll make blood mix no matter what. It'll make any substance mix no matter what, right? And so the emperor, happy, but also now immediately suspicious because the empress prepared this water as to be impartial, right? And so the empress tries to defend herself, but then we have Consort Jing piling on, we have Consort Duan piling on. Like, it's not looking good. Like, they're like, you're the empress. What else could you want, right? And so the emperor is like, all right, we're going to do the blood test again, right? And we have Su Peshang prepare it himself. And that's, he's completely impartial, he's not going to fuck with it. This proves that there's nobody tampering with it, right? And this time, of course, the test comes back negative. You are not the father. Oh shit, you are not the father. Bitch, I told you. I'm not the daddy. Yo. Like, everybody's like, oh my god, what? Everyone's like going crazy, right? The emperor, like you said, I guess you're his word, he immediately like vindicates Noble Consort Shi, and everything's looking all good, right? No, chat. For some fucking reason, Noble Lady Chi still is insisting with her 3 witnesses as evidence that she has all the evidence ever, and that the emperor can't ignore this matter. And speaking of evidence, right? We see that Noble Lady Ning has come rushing in gallantly, if I might add, and she's brought Mo Yin with her to testify. Yu Rao also comes running in. She makes her own entrance, and she comes rushing to her sister's side, and she scolds the emperor. She's like, "How could you, emperor? How could you doubt my sister? How could you be so muddled?" And I was just like, "Well, don't push it now, okay? Chill out." And so we see that Mo Yin really kind of does a really good depiction, a very acute and sad depiction of the painful hardships Noble Consort Shi had to endure while trying to survive and live under Prioress Jingbai's mercy. Not to mention her being kicked out and forced to live at Lingyun Peak. She was mercilessly thrown out into the cold at that. And so this puts her in a weird gray area, right? Because she kind of, what? Why did I say that? That's such a weird line that I put about Mo Yin. This puts her in a weird gray area, I guess. I don't know, chat. Sometimes when I be writing my scripts, sometimes the lines just all blur together. Crazy. But anyways, Mo Yin's giving an accurate description of what's happening. It's pretty much what everyone thought. Consort Jing is, looking remorseful. Consort Duan, she can't even look at, Noble Lady Chi because she's so upset at the fact that she had to deal with this, right? But here we go. We have Concubine An flip-flopping. Now, all of a sudden, Concubine An is like, oh, you know what? We should get Prioress Jingbai. We should make her pay for going against JJ, right? Going against my sister, right? And the emperor is like, what? Like, out of nowhere, too. Like, so he's like, okay, what punishment should we do? And out of nowhere, she's like, we should cut her tongue out so she can't tell lies again. And everyone's like, oh, wow, okay, the cruel and evil person that you are. Wow, okay, we see it. I see you. We see you, see me, see you. Okay. And so now that everything has fallen apart for Noble Lady Chi overall, Prioress Jingbai is dragged out, assumably to be killed, tortured, or have her tongue cut out and then killed. I don't know. We also have Bin she steps forward and she immediately kneels down to apologize to the noble consort. Like we predicted, she was being forced. She was being tortured, showing like these really fucked up scars and bruises on her arm. And that noble lady Chi would have killed her had she, not been, you know, uh, if she had not been obedient. There we go. But we also see that noble consort she then uses this opportunity to use like her own how does one say, she uses her own wit to turn the tides. She kind of wants to now say this, out of everything that's happened, this clearly is a whole master plan. This couldn't have just been done by noble lady Chi alone. There's clearly a mastermind behind all of this, right? And so she actually ends up offering noble lady Chi a deal, and she says she'll spare her if she exposes, this mastermind, right? Noble Lady Chi is too prideful though. She's too much of a vainful person because she truly does hate Noble Consort She does. And so she knows that, and the Empress kind of gives her like the look, like don't you fucking say anything look. So she knows that she can't say anything, and she truly hates Noble Consort She. So she takes all the blame, and she accepts all of the punishment, stating that nobody else made her do it, and it was just her, right? And so now, still not like, still not from like being like casted in such a suspicious light. Like the Empress now is trying to once again save her skin, and as always is using the method that works the best: her sister's name and memory, right? She's trying to soften the emperor up into, like understanding that, it's nice that a sister would believe, noble consort She, if my sister was here, she would believe that I would never do something like this. Because the Empress is still trying to make it seem like she didn't do anything. I didn't touch the water. I was just here, impartially investigating. Someone brought this to my attention, still putting on that facade, right? Conveniently, a maid just happens just to step out of the fucking spotlight, or step out of the into the spotlight, and she bows down, saying that she happened to taint the water with the loom when she was preparing it, and it wasn't her fault. The emperor doesn't even look up when he automatically sentences her to death. He like waves his hand and is like, Super and Super Shang's like, yes, and he's like, death sentence. But none of that even matters right now, because we switch up and we are at Concubine Hui's palace. And she is beyond worried now. She's just frustrated. And no word has been released. Nothing has got out from the Empress's palace. And she was still waiting for her Imperial Physician Wen to come back, right? So before she can send her head maid, Sayu, out to figure out what was going on and to get news, we see, strangely enough, Concubine An sent her maid over to tell Concubine Hui about what was happening, right? And completely alarming Concubine Hui, she goes into like fight or flight panic mode and she's like, fuck the child, fuck saving myself. I gotta go help I have to go help Noble Consort She. But also Imperial Physician Wen, because he's been entangled in all this bullshit, right? So while she's getting ready to leave, we head back to the Empress's Jingren Palace, right? And after all is said and done, the Emperor is completely exhausted. He's completely done with all this bullshit. He completely demotes Noble Lady Chi to commoner and convicts her to stay in the cold palace. The cold palace. Damn, be talking so fast. The cold palace for I guess eternity, until she's executed. The emperor also punishes attendant Kang and concubine Shen with a 6 months salary deduction for the gossip and the egging on, pretty much their entire role in all this bullshit. And then Fei Wen is sentenced to death by beheading for her role in all of this. And that pretty much ends episode 63 of Empresses in the Palace. Final thoughts? Whoa, what the fuck? So much shit has happened. Good news. Noble Consort Shi isn't at all harmed by this reputation, or physically, as in general. Like, she's not, if anything, she came out on top. She's not down, chat. She's not like, what am I trying to say? What are my final thoughts on this? Because I write my scripts, but I always leave my final thoughts to the live portion, just because I like to be a little bit more authentic on it. And honestly, I'm just ready for the Empress to get her comeuppance. Concubine An is becoming a problem, but the Empress, she's still getting saved by like the skin of her fucking teeth. And it's getting to me, chat. It is fucking getting to me, no lie. We're just gonna hop straight into it. We are watching, what is it? Season 1, episode 13, part 2. And honestly, chat, recap, we have a little bit of turbulence when it comes to dealing with the Empress now, right? She's gonna be a formidable foe. Episode 63 was a big example of that. She pretty much, even though she hasn't been, outed or pretty much punished for her role, she has teamed up with Noble Lady Qi to try and take down Noble Consort Shen. And it's not looking good. It's not looking good. That being said, we are watching episode 64 of Empress in the Palace. Empress in the Palace, The Legend of Zhen Huan, is a 2011 Chinese television series based on the novel of the same name by the author Liu Lianzi. And honestly, we're starting once again, as we always do, right off where we left. We're picking right back up. Jing Bai has her tongue cut out, and it is presented to Noble Consort Shi, who then in turn tells the guard to give it to Noble Lady Qi, and Noble Lady Qi is like, "You're disgusting," or she's like, "You're vicious," and it's like, I don't think you know what that word means. I don't think you really understand exactly what that word means, darlings. You're calling me vicious? Anyway, Noble Lady Qi pretty much starts to lose it, and after a while, the Emperor drags her out. Like, he's done. Like we said, she's been demoted. There we go. She's been demoted, and that's pretty much the end of her, And still, oddly enough, Concubine An decides that this is the time, for some reason, once again, not really good with timing, not really good with understanding what's happening. We see. Can't really get the picture, can you, Concubine An? She decides that this is the time to viciously, pile on and damn Imperial Physician Wen, and that his feelings will only bring death to those around him, And Imperial Physician Wen, understandably disturbed, freaked the fuck out, swears to the Emperor, swears to Noble Consort Shi that he will, he will prove himself loyal. He will confirm himself loyal to the crown. And he rushes off, right? Now exhausted, completely emotionally drained from today's entire events, the Emperor announces that the Empress, yeah, no, we're gonna have you take a backseat. Fixing my chair. We're gonna have you take a back seat. We're gonna have you chill out for a bit. You clearly can't handle the pressure. Okay. And we're gonna have Noble Consort Shi, who's gonna be assisted by Consort Jing and Consort Tuan, take over and handle those duties for the moment, because you clearly aren't up to the task. And completely distraught, the Empress, falls back into her chair, silent. Can't say shit. But we move to the next scene with Concubine Hui. She hasn't stopped worrying yet, guys. She's still in the background here. Someone please update Concubine Hui, okay? She has yet to actually make it into the Empress's palace. She's actually walking up the walkway when all of a sudden a eunuch comes rushing past her, and so much so that he kind of brushes past her, and she has to move out of the way quickly, which is odd because she's pregnant, concubine, hello. And he comes running in, and he decides to alert the emperor that, hey, did you know Imperial Physician Wen has castrated himself and is currently bleeding out? Conveniently finishing his sentence as Concubine Wei has stepped in the door and hears this and instantly passes out and falls to the ground. She's just done for, KO'd, right? And we get a scene that is very reminiscent of Noble Consort Shi's labor and all of, the pressure and pain that she's displaying, the sweat on her brow, a lot of the emotional toll that this is taking on her, and Concubine Hui, who was now trying to give birth herself, right? But we kind of get a little bit of juxtaposition of, it's funny because it's the parents of this beautiful princess that are going through so much pain to have her brought in the world, And we get to switch over to Imperial Physician Wen, who's also in his own form the physical torture and is, clutching himself because he just castrated his, sliced them jewels right off clean, right? And so at this point, we have other Imperial physicians who are trying to help him by stopping the bleeding, right? And they're trying to staunch it and grab this paste and all these types of medicine, right? And finally, we get everything under control for Imperial Physician Wen. So now we switch back to Concubine Hui. And now we see that both Noble Consort Shi and Concubine An are sitting down in the room waiting, right? And Noble Consort Shi confronts and pretty much slaps the shit out of Concubine An, right? For sending her maid to inform Concubine Hui and pretty much causing such shock to her system, right? That she ended up wanting to come see what was going on, and then she passed out because of the news, right? She wasn't supposed to receive any such news. That's also why the Empress Dowager put a gag order on the palace in terms of telling her what was going on with those around her, because she's so fragile, right? She's pregnant. And it's weird. Concubine An puts on this, I don't know what to call it, facade of, true, genuine, sorrow. She's upset at what she's done, right? And starts slapping herself. And she's like, yes, I deserve to be slapped. And then she calls in the maid that actually, told the news. And she starts slapping the shit out of her. And she's like, how could you do this? Did you knew what was gonna happen? Were you trying to betray me? All this craziness, right? Just going ham, right? Putting on, the show, times 10, right? And the emperor walks in as all of this is happening, right? And, noticing that was the maid that, pretty much caused all this, calmly just tells to Su Peshang, go find a place and go find her, or find a place for her and go kill her, and that was the end of that, right? That maid gets dragged out screaming, you know what I'm saying? And we get news that Imperial Physician Wen is safe for now. He's not in any like majorly like bodily harm. He's out of critical condition, you know, like he's okay for the moment, right? But in the same breath, we get news that Concubine Hui's condition is not getting any better. She's bleeding, like she's bleeding out, and she's getting tired. She's not pushing, so the baby isn't coming out, right? And so we have a big issue due to Imperial Physician Wen being her main, like, I guess OBGYN you would call it at the time, like her main caretaker for the duration of her pregnancy. All the other Imperial physicians in the room don't really know much about her condition, right? And so they suggest they try and get any pertinent information from Imperial Physician Wen as soon as possible about Concubine Hui's health so they can help her. Because they can't just prescribe her any kind of medicine without knowing, oh, does she have this kind of allergy? Does she, and then they say it as cold temperament or whatnot, but it's a little bit more scientific than that from what I understand. And so, sensing like this is the only option like they have left, Concubine Hui and trying to save Concubine Hui and her child, sensing they have no option, the Emperor and Noble Lady Qi kind of come to the agreement that they need to probably get Imperial Physician Wen in regardless of whether or not he's okay, right? And the doctors are like, I mean, it's fine if he's not able to deliver the baby. We just really need him here so we know what's happening. And so Imperial Physician Wen gets pulled in immediately, and he comes in on a stretcher. He's here to help, right? And he gets to work, like, readily and, you know, sure, but albeit in a lot of pain. Like, this man looks pale. They got this man on some really, like, hilarious, like, pale chapstick makeup concealer lip thing going on to convey, like, he's, like, lost a lot of blood, right? But his concoctions, regardless, are starting to work. And Concubine Hui is out of the woods so far. She's starting to react a little bit better. The bleeding has stopped somewhat, and now they can try and proceed with the labor, right? The Emperor, hearing this news, being made aware of this news, immediately happy, declares he's going to promote Concubine Hui to consort, right? So she can relax with ease during her delivery, knowing that she'll be secure in her and her child will be secure in their positions, and that nothing should be bothering her from, you know, this point on, right? But what's really sad is that, like, because the Emperor also is like, I owe her so much, you know, like, this is the tip of the iceberg. But what's really sad is, like, what's bothering her is the simple fact that hearing the news that, you know, Imperial Physician Wen castrated himself pretty much broke, like, the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, she was already worried that something was happening, and especially hearing the news that Noble Consort Shi was summoned to the Empress's palace, it was just too much for her, right? So even being promoted to consort, all this news, like, it's just, I don't know, is she even present to even receive this news? You feel me? Right? But at the end of it, she is promoted to consort, right? And so a little bit of an uncomfortable update for it, but we have rank updates, I guess. And if you're new to the channel, you are new to watching Watch Club in general, for this series, for this season in Empresses in the Palace, I do keep up with the ranks in the show, the ranks of the women in the show. And I do this simply because, yes, it makes it easier to notice the hierarchy and who's doing what and why they are doing because of what. Sometimes I do lose track. They'll have, like, the concubine selection in these dramas, and it'll be like 4 girls introduced, and it's like, wait, who's who and what's going on again? But with that being said, the current ranks are as follows. We have 2 categories, the older and the newer. Older simply just meaning the women who are more or less a part of the harem at the beginning or at the start of the series and have been a part of the harem since the emperor, you know, was a prince and then took the throne. And in that category, we have one empress. We have 3 consorts: consort Duan, consort Jing, and 1 noble lady, noble lady Xin. In the newer category, we have those who have been added at the start, like the beginning and the start of the drama, which excuse me, at the start of the drama, which was like the concubine selection, who were added into the harem, and they weren't there. They were pretty much there after the emperor took the throne. And in that selection, we have 1 noble consort Shi. We have 1 consort Hui, who was concubine Hui at the time, but she's now consort Hui, apparently. We have 2 concubines, concubine An and concubine Zhen. 2 noble ladies, noble lady Ning. Oh wait, no. We don't have 2 noble ladies. We have 1 noble lady, because noble lady Qi is kaput. She's out. So we have 1 noble lady Ning, and then we have 1 attendant Kang. So let me know how you guys feel about these rank updates. I like doing them, but let me know if they're a little too jarring. As we are going along in the review, I'll start I'm like placing them elsewhere. I mean, what, we'll figure it out. We'll get there. But like we said, we put this rank update in there because concubine Hui is now consort Hui, right? And soon, after some time, we hear the cry of a baby, right? We hear the little lungs finally open, and that baby is screaming. It's confirmed that consort Hui has given birth to a baby girl, a princess. The emperor, in excitement, really happy, really overjoyed. He wants to go rush in and like try and see her, right? But the maids, her head maid in particular, Sayu, she's like, consort Hui is extremely exhausted. She's already passed out. Give her some time to rest and then just come back, right? And so the emperor's like, sure, not a problem. My baby's born. She's okay. Let's go. Let's do this, right? And so the emperor agrees to leave, and he comes back for a visit. But we have noble consort She decides to stay behind, right? Because, that's her sister, That's Jeje. I'm not gonna leave her behind. Come on now. And so she decides that she'll stay and like handle all the matters, right? But, and I literally mean but, in a really heartbreaking twist of fate, I might add. As soon as noble consort She like really got like to settle down and was sitting in her chair, a maid comes rushing in to inform her that consort Hui is bleeding out and is now on the verge of death, right? And noble consort She comes rushing into the room. She's completely in shock. There are midwives who are trying to stop the bleeding. They're running around trying to grab the paste. Imperial physician Wen's kneeling next to her, just holding. He's like, forget the paste. It doesn't matter. Noble consort She doesn't even accept this. She screams at them and she's like, you better get that the best medical paste you have, or everyone's getting buried with her, right? And so, knowing she won't have time left, consort Hui, calls out to noble consort She, and she's like, just send them away. Send them away. You and Imperial physician Wen, I want you guys to stay by my side, but send everyone else out, right? So the noble consort, she tries to persuade consort Hui to fight. She's like, you've been promoted to consort, you'll be okay, just fight. And consort Hui, as always, being the best friend, being that true, love and light that noble consort She knows her to be, is like, fuck that. Damn well titles don't mean shit. You got promoted to noble consort and you're not happy. What would I care about a title? And noble consort She is like, well, you gotta think for your kids. What about your daughter? And consort Hui's like, my daughter's not gonna care about any of that shit, And so with that, Consort Hui tries to reconcile with Imperial Physician Wen next, right? And it's about that night where they actually slept together and they kind of finally open reveal that, yeah, they indeed did the do. And her current daughter is his child. And Consort Hui, kind of knowing that she, moments away from dying, you know, tries to she kind of like tries to get Imperial Physician Wen to admit like his feelings for her. And at first he doesn't. And she's like, or he does, it's not that he doesn't, but at first he doesn't say anything. And Consort Hui is like, forget it, I'd rather you not even lie at that point. I'm already dying, right? And she's like, I know you hate me for all of it even happening in the first place anyway. And he's like, no. Imperial Physician Wen nuts up and he's like, that's not even what this is about. That wine wasn't even enough for me to like you because I had already liked you. And she's like, really? She's like, Jinto. And I'm tearing up at this point, chat. Like, I forgot to mention, I'm bawling eyes out. Fuck writing. Fuck having the script. I'm in such turmoil at to see Consort Hui go through all this, right? So Consort Hui decides that before she goes, she wants to name her daughter. Her daughter doesn't have a name yet, right? And she tells Noble Consort Shi that Jinghe is her name, naming her after the peaceful and quiet life that both the consorts wanted for themselves and each other, about the happiness that they always dreamed of, right? And smiling at that, this was the most beautiful part of this episode, honestly, chat. Imperial Physician Wen, he lifts her up into his arms, holding her, and she's like, oh, it feels so good to be held, to finally to be held in your, and then passes out and just dies. And I'm just like, oh my fucking god, stop, no. And I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to rewatch this just for context sake so I can write my script, because I could not process that and write a script at the same time. This was so painful to watch, right? At the end of the episode, we do get a beautiful montage of the friendship and the hardships that Consort Hui and Noble Consort Shi have gone through, and all the years that they've been friends and really sisters, pretty much just culminating in her ceremonial funeral, one that's really, really, sad. You can see that Noble Consort Shi is crying and everyone in the room is just solemn. We even see Imperial Physician Wen, he's peeking around the corner just staring, longing at her coffin, right? And it's really, really, really heartbreaking that we had to lose such an awesome person. And I'm like, you know what? Somebody better, I usually don't believe in capital punishment, but today somebody better get the death sentence. Somebody better get Concubine on and light her ass up, bro. That's crazy that she got away with that shit so far. I'm sure this shit's gonna come to light that shit was her. I'm sure it is. That shit's crazy. Talking about, oh, she didn't know it was her maid. She didn't do any of it. Girl, please. Nobody's believing you. Nobody's believing you. Anyways, chat. My bad for going off on that tangent. Just truly upset at that scene. While leaving the funeral, speaking of, Urao again meets up with Prince Sheng, and they're kind of getting a little closer. Their relationship has developed a little bit more. She's not as abrasive, though she does scold him a little bit for, having his clothes tear a little bit. And so she goes as far as to mend it for him, And she also kind of says that it's, repayment for vouching for her sister the other night when she was going through that, But we see that some days have passed after everything. Consort Hui has been allowed to take care of Jinghe, and she is fussy. She is crying. She doesn't want to eat her food. And the medicine that she does need to take, she'll probably have to be fed through the nursemaid. So, things are just a little somber right now, because Jinghe, while yes, a baby and we love her, and Noble Consort, she's gonna make sure she has the best for her. Noble Consort, she even knows herself that she's not her parents, right? And when she was talking to the disciple of Imperial Physician Wei was his name, lol. She decides that, you know what, I'm gonna invite Imperial Physician Wen over under the pretense of taking Princess Jinghe's pulse, but also being here to hold her and to see her, because he's mulling over, the death of Consort Hui, right? He's just been drinking his sorrows away and has just pretty much been holding himself up. He's crippled now, and at this point, is just wallowing in his sorrows. But Eunuch Su comes by. He drops off a gift for Yu Rao, apparently a reward from the Emperor, for bravely standing up for her sister, apparently, for running in and saving the day, alright? And Noble Consort, she accepts the gift on her sister's behalf, but she kind of casts like this really knowing of a look at Huan Bi, and Huan Bi kind of catches it, and they're like, what is this implying right now, right? But in the next scene, we see that Concubine An is sitting in her palace, and she's getting drunk too, right? She's complaining about how at the end of the day, it had to be done. Consort Hui wasn't even her competition, but she just disgustingly so just like is so upset that the bond that she had with Noble Consort, she was strong, that she had to break it in order to like knock Noble Consort she down a peg, or cut her down a two, a leg or two. And by killing off Consort Hui, she's achieved that goal, right? And this is what I mean by like capital punishment, bro. I'm telling you, get the beheading going. So sick of her. It's really sick though. Really sick. Anyways, speaking of Noble Consort, her and the Emperor are talking at her palace, right? And they're talking about like just odd topics, and like he sees this painting on the wall, and he happens to be like, oh, I never gave you this painting, where'd you get it? And so she's like, oh, that's my sister's painting. You're right, it seems to have fooled you, right? And so the Emperor, immediately taking interest, he's like, oh, what happened to Yu Rao? I gave her, a gift the other day, and she never came to, give me thanks. You can't escape it today, because I know she's here, right? And as if on cue, right, Yu Rao walks into the room, and the Emperor, clearly smitten with this young lady, is trying to like not necessarily goad her with treasures and stuff, but Yu Rao's just not interested. Like, he's like, oh, well, I want to reward you with something that you like. And Yu Rao's like, I don't like all that jewelry and all that gaudy shit, I like simple things. And he's like, okay, well, what is that? And that happens to just so be painting. And even still, not satisfied with what the Emperor has to offer, she kind of rejects his advances even more, right? The Emperor finally getting the hint, he offers to give her, since he was so impressed by her copy of the painting, the original painting in itself as a thank you. Which she accepts, because fair enough, I'm not gonna turn down, an authentic now, because you're trying to be fucking sweet on me, get crazy. But anyways, she walks out, pretty much, like I said, not interested, just kind of going about her pretty much just walking out like, all right, thanks, we're good. And once again, she runs into Prince Shen. And it's like, all right, at this point, I see what they're doing here. I see what they're doing. They're coupling her and Prince Shen up. And it's cute because, like, the way they're doing it's like both of them discovered they had like a share of love of painting, right? And in particular, certain styles of painting and certain poem styles too. So it's like they kind of were like, oh, let's go hang out together and let's go have like this friendly competition. I'm like, okay, I see that budding relationship, and I'm with it. I'm with it because Year Round deserves so much better than the fucking Emperor. I'm sorry, she does. It's just, it is. It is what it is. But the day has come, and Imperial Physician Wen has stopped by to read Princess Jinghe's pulse, right? And he shows up a little worse for wear. There's alcohol smell on his breath, and he's like, you know, one with such a dead heart as mine, why would I care about hygiene, right? And it's apparent he's still grieving Consort Hui's death. But Noble Consort, she's like, while she understands where he's coming from, you have to keep living, if not for yourself, maybe for Princess Jinghe. Like, she needs her father, right? But we don't get much of that conversation because we switch over to the Empress's palace. She and Concubine An are talking together, right? Both are sitting there sullied and pissed because the Emperor is still only caring about visiting Noble Consort Shi, right? And both of them kind of acknowledge that Concubine An has to try harder than before to win the Emperor's favor. And the Empress is like, you know, I didn't promote you for no reason. And Concubine An makes it very apparent that, like, I understand you didn't promote me for any reason, but make no mistake, I hate Noble Consort Shi just as the next person, and she not finna live or have good days while I'm here. So you don't even have to tell me twice. And this is what I mean by capital punishment, chat. This girl is so fucking sick, chat. I can't wait till we get her comeuppance, honestly. But a few days pass again, and the Emperors come to visit Noble Consort Shi, and the two were talking about, you know, visiting the Summer Palace, the Emperor feeling empathetic that he's not able to take her. Noble Consort Shi is understanding. She's like, you know, it wouldn't make sense, me and the kids, and plus the nannies, you know, like that's a lot of renovation and money spent, you know, we're trying to be frugal. And the Emperor's like, speaking of frugality, you know, I noticed that in the record books you've been keeping such a good tab on the money and the money spent in the harem that we saved so much, you know, so much amount. I think it was like 7,000 or something like that. And Noble Consort Shi makes this playful joke that, you know, it won't matter in the end because he'll probably end up marrying other concubines and we'll have to spend money on them as well. And, you know, the Emperor kind of calls her out playfully too, and he's like, are you jealous? Are you jealous? And so, you know, they kind of have like this little playful banter and they go back and forth a little bit more. But then he jokes and he's like, how about I marry Huan Bi then? That way the money spent will come from your salary, so it won't even actually be more money. And then the fucking episode ends. The episode ends on that, right? And so my final thoughts from that episode 64, Empresses in the Palace. Like I said, I haven't cried this many tears in a show for a really long time. Like I distinctly remember being like, yo, I gotta take a break. I have to go sit and play with my dog and feel happy again, right? Like, I didn't see any of this coming. Like, you know, I didn't foresee us losing concubine, Consort Hui, you know? And it's also very apparent that Concubine An has proved herself to be, like, one of the cruelest women in the harem. She's a formidable foe. She's not someone that we can keep ignoring. The Empress is a problem, yes, but Concubine An is her biggest soldier. That is a real obstacle, honestly. All right. When you count up all like her devious actions too, can I point out like all the like evil shit that she's done like against noble consort Shi, you really get like this picture of like how insecure and bitter and insane, honestly, concubine An is. And hopefully the emperor will pick up on that. Like he started to notice back in the room, like I think a lot of the concubines started to notice back in the room, right? But also, speaking of the emperor, Buddy is like undoubtedly taking interest in Urao right now. Am I not? Is it just me? And it's making me nervous because it's like the last thing we need is Urao to marry into the imperial family and then have to deal with the empress and concubine on. You know they're gonna do everything in their power to make her life hell. You know they're gonna make it so that she just can't live. Like that's crazy. But with that being said, everyone, we are done with episode 13, part 2, Watch Club, Empresses in the Palace. That was amazing. Once again, I apologize for that big pause there. But I had such a great time with everyone here. Big shout outs to everyone in the chat. Big shout outs to my follower. YouTube, we love you. As always, it's Auto09 here on Twitch. HPMP Restored on YouTube. Rami G, Twitter, Instagram. We have Discord now. Join O9's force. Join my force of earthreal creatures where you get storytelling